How are we doing, everybody? Welcome back to the Sean Atwood channel. I'm Ron Swanson, and we're back talking about Kurt Cobain with Chris and Michelle. We're going to be diving into some of the new questions, new theories. Of course, every single time I post one of these lives, there's new headlines the day this is all being brought to you here, and the story just keeps growing and growing and growing. But before we get into all that, and we'll go ladies first. Michelle, thank you for being here. Introduce yourself. Let everyone know just who you are, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, my name is Michelle. I've been investigating the case for a few years now. I'm the study coordinator for the peer-reviewed published report that came out in October, just where we believe we've proved that Kurt's death was a homicide. And I think that was sort of the first step in taking this from conspiracy theory to like, hey, these people have valid questions. So yeah, we're just really happy that people still care so much about Kurt. They care so much about what happened to him, and people are still making him part of the conversation. So thanks everyone for tuning in and for giving a fuck about what happened to him 32 years ago.
I agree. I agree. And make sure you guys like and subscribe. Chris, how are you? Welcome back to the channel. Great to finally meet you. I think we maybe briefly met before, but my brain's all over the place. But it's great to have you here. How are you doing? Introduce yourself for anyone who maybe have lived under a rock and doesn't know who you are, brother.
Yeah, it's all good, man. Yeah, I'm glad we finally get to meet officially, and Michelle. It's nice to finally meet Michelle officially. And Roro, we said, we got some stuff we can talk about another time. So we have some history here with me and
Yeah,
you
we do.
over
We
the
do.
last couple of years. Yeah, I'm Chris Todd, investigator, author, journalist. Honored to be here. And obviously, my history with the Cobain case is a little different than Michelle's, but I'm so happy we finally get to bring the Who Killed Kurt into the Chris Todd little world, because I've been getting a lot of hate mail. I've been threatened to not come on with Michelle, and I'm sure she has too. And so it's fascinating. I think your audience can have a fun time today.
Okay, well, look, let me put you guys like this. Let's start off where you guys want to really take the first step in this story. Michelle, do you want to start off and take us through your points and your views? Consider it more of a conversation as well. Chris, I mean, if you're wanting to interject and bounce off, feel free to do so, and just fill us in on what effectively could really have happened, Michelle.
Um, so what we sort of put together, we worked with a crime scene reconstructionist named Brian Burnett, and he has about 40 years experience, just working in crime scene reconstruction, ballistics, GSR. He had started out as a marine biologist, and then as he was looking at things in the ocean, very, very small things, he realized that as he was sort of co-creating a tunneling electron microscope, and that microscope works really well for gunshot residue. So he sort of transitioned from marine biology into, hey, I'm gonna like help do this crime scene thing and look at gunshot residue, etc. So he started doing that, and he's been doing that for 40 years. He's worked on a really interesting case, Ron, that you might be interested in. It's
Okay.
in the James Sabo case, and that was during the Iran-Contra affair. Basically, what Brian proved was that they said it was a suicide. Brian said it was homicide, framed as suicide, using a shotgun, very similar things to what happened to Kurt. And that's why we went with Brian, because he was so well versed in people trying to cover something like this up. And we started talking with him, and I was sending him stuff back and forth, and a few days later he gets obsessed with the case, just like we all do. And a few days later he calls me and he's like, Michelle, this was a homicide. And you have to remember that Brian is doing this on about 4 photos of Cobain, because the
Hmm.
death scene photos have never been released besides a few photos. Courtney Love took it up to the Supreme Court of Washington to make sure that no one would ever be able to access Cobain's autopsy or the other death scene photos. So we're, running on very few. We do have a copy of the autopsy, and we're running on a very few photos. But he was able to put together a fairly comprehensive, I think, statement as to what happened to Kurt. So what we believe happened, and interestingly, Chris and I go back and forth on this a bit. So you'll see where we connect and where we agree and where we disagree. But what we believe happened is Cobain came home from Exodus. He walked out the front door. People like to say he jumped the wall. That's a joke. He didn't. He had his wallet. He had his keys. We know that they take that when you go into Exodus. So he walked out the front door. He was checked in by him on his own, walks out the front door, heads home to Seattle, gets home about 1 a.m. April 2nd. He talks to Callie. He talks to a few of the people that are staying at his house. So Chris will go into this a little more, but there are people, hangers on, I guess you would say, people, Courtney's little flying monkeys that kind of hung out at Kurt Cobain's house. These people that they were her friends, not Kurt's, and she sort of put them into the situation. So Cobain talks to a few of them. He's kind of in and out of the greenhouse and the house, hanging out for a few days. He's recording music, things that people do when they plan to have a future. And then what we believe happened is one of Kurt's friends, Dylan Carlson, showed up at the house with two other people. And those people told Kurt, let's go back up to the greenhouse and do more dope. Well, Kurt was already a little bit high, didn't need to do more dope, didn't want to go back up to the greenhouse. And here's where Chris and I are gonna have a little bit of a different take, but this will be interesting for you guys. So then they manhandle him, force him to go back up to the greenhouse. We believe he was given a very large hot shot. In the photos, Ron, there's a photo in our report that shows a mark here where we believe Kurt was injected with a large needle. The needles they said Kurt used were the little diabetic needles. Those are not big enough to have gotten enough black tar heroin in Kurt's system to incapacitate him. He had, Detective Szynski said Cobain had enough heroin in his system to kill him 10 times over, more heroin than they had ever seen in any other user in Seattle. So you're talking about big guys, 6'4" guys who have been using heroin for 10 years. They had never seen that much heroin in anyone else. So we're talking a load of heroin. So Cobain would have had to, be shot up or shoot himself up 3 to 4 times with little needles. So we believe he was shot up with one big needle, incapacitated, and then he was shot. The reason oh, sorry, Ron, go ahead.
No. I was wanting to know, is there any, if you're a long time user of a substance, is there any false data that can come from how much of that substance is in the system?
That's a great question.
In their results, if that makes sense, because I would imagine he's got quite a tolerance level, if that makes sense. And 10 times, 10 times is probably too much anyway. If you know, I'm not discounting what you're saying, but is that the sort of argument that they're going to put forward? That because the tolerance level is something I've heard talked about before, but when we're talking about 10 times, maybe 2 times, it would be a tolerance level, right? But 10 times seems quite a lot. And have you come up against that argument of his tolerance level, Michelle?
Oh yeah, for years and years, people have said that. But here's why we know that's not true, Ron. There's something that happens in heroin, and it's called 6-MAM, and your body breaks that down. So you do heroin, and then your body breaks it down very quickly, like within about 30 minutes. So some people go, well, Cobain probably did that much heroin over a 12-hour period. He didn't, because he had tons of 6-MAM in his system, which means his body died before it could finish breaking down the 6-MAM.
Okay.
So we know, of course, thank you for bringing it up. So we know that Cobain was given that hot shot very quickly before he died, likely within a few minutes and likely within 5 minutes. He was given a huge amount of heroin and his system basically shut down. So in the autopsy, we see necrosis of the brain and of the liver. That doesn't happen in a shotgun suicide, because what that means is that the brain and the liver have both been starved of oxygen. And that happens as you're overdosing. So you see that all the time in overdoses, because people are basically comatose and their heart is barely beating and they're not getting blood to their brain and their liver. If he had shot himself and he was still breathing normally, we would see no necrosis in the brain or liver.
Yeah, it's kind of like the difference between a slow and instant death, right?
Exactly right. So we know Cobain was dead before the shotgun went off. The other thing is that there was no aspirated blood in Kurt's lungs. So when you drown or when you use a shotgun, very quickly you take an autonomic breath. That we can't control that. So the way that like a forensic pathologist would look at and see if somebody was dead before they entered the water in a drowning would be to see if there was water in their lungs, because they can't help it. As soon as they hit the water, they take a breath. As soon as you use a shotgun, you take your last breath. There should be aspirated blood in Kurt's lungs, and Kurt's lungs are underweight. There's no blood in his lungs at all. So we know that he was dead before that shotgun went off. It is literally physiologically impossible for him not to have taken that last breath and breathed blood into the lungs. So, his autopsy basically proves he was dead before the shotgun. So people can continue using that tolerance argument. We'll hit them back with the 6, ma'am, showing that they're wrong. But then we can,
Well, I wanna
move right
hit
on to the autopsy.
yeah.
Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I
I
wanna
was just going to say, Chris, before we move on, please,
Well
any points you want to put into that, please do so.
No. Just on the I'll let her keep going. I'm saying the tolerance thing. We
Yeah.
need to address that.
Okay.
Because, and especially from someone like me, Michelle probably knows more about the autopsy than I do. Okay. I've had to learn how to read autopsies over the years. I'm not a doctor. And obviously she did it with experts. So this is her world, right? When I did my research, how I do my research, okay, there were normal users who would die at 0.35 milligrams per liter. Okay. That's
Okay.
5 times more Kurt has in his system.
Oh.
5. Okay. So that's a heroin user. There were
Okay.
other people that died at 0.23. Okay. So now if you watch, like even Soaked in Bleach, I think, or one of the other ones says he had 70 times the amount. There's sometimes they say a crazy high number, right? But that's what they mean. Like, yeah, to someone who never did it, kill a horse. Even though Kurt's 140 pounds, yeah, he's got a high tolerance. We get it. Okay. It's way too high. If it was like 0.8, we'll give it to you. Okay. 0.6, like you said, Ron, maybe if it's 2 times over, it's like 5 minimum.
Do you know?
Okay?
Do you know what's interesting? All the
And the
things
pill, Michelle, let's tell them the pill thing real quick about the stupid people that did this he had 2 milligram, he took a pill, he swallowed it, it got digested. They've made up stuff on this case for years. The police have lied so many times, it's ridiculous.
Chris, it seems to me that everything that you're bringing to the table, it rings of amateur murder, right? Oh, we didn't know the brown stuff breaks down in the body like this. Oh, we didn't know his needles are different from ours. Oh, we didn't know about the last breath. And then we've got a Supreme Court denying access to photos and a medical report.
Because Courtney knew she wanted to deny everybody that. But I think let Michelle continue the autopsy because look, the autopsy thing is the big hot thing in the news. Okay. I tried to do what I could, and everybody knows my deal. They silenced me. Michelle did it in a way to grab the doctors, the medical examiners, and that's where we're at. So I think this is how it leads in, is letting her drive that first. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Michelle, if you're happy to do that, I would love to let you continue.
And I appreciate exactly what Chris is saying too, because it speaks to the point that this is the argument that they've given us for, 32 years. Well, he was like a really, heavy user. He could have survived it. He couldn't have survived it. And, what Chris is talking about is, so in Kurt and Courtney, Nick Broomfield, who made that movie, he framed the entire movie with the BBC to show that it was a homicide. And then in the last 10 minutes, they brought in a doctor who said, well, this guy, we gave methadone to this guy. He swallowed it and he was able to use a shotgun for 5 minutes. Dude, that's methadone. That's not black tar heroin. And that's through your stomach. That's ingested. That's completely different than intravenous heroin. So, the straw man arguments for this case have been ridiculous from the start. I know that a lot of people feel like they connect with Kurt. They think his death was very romantic, in the Shakespearean tragedy sense. And they feel like, my whole identity is based around the fact that Cobain committed suicide, and it's just not reality. So I think, there are people who understand now and read the science and go, oh shit, okay, this is right. And then there are people who go, I refuse to even look at it because I want to believe that Cobain was that mentally ill that he took his own life. And it's just not true. I mean, we talk about people who actually knew Kurt talking about his sense of humor, about who he was. There was never any previous suicide attempt. This is all Courtney's narrative after Kurt died and couldn't stand up for himself. Her convincing people he was always suicidal. He was depressed. He had tried to take his life numerous times in the past. And, one other thing about the heroin levels, Cobain had overdosed at least 3 or 4 other times. And you know how he was found? With the needle in his arm. So he wasn't, Captain Heroin of the opioid planet that could do more heroin than anyone else. He was found overdosed numerous times and then, resuscitated with a needle in his arm. So what does that tell us? 1, he didn't have a crazy high tolerance. And 2, Why then in the death scene photos were the needles put away with the caps on the needles and the box is moved, everything is cleaned up, his sleeves are rolled down and buttoned after he's injected himself 3 times.
Oh,
There's no tourniquet.
yeah, that's
How?
wild.
Like
I want
this
to
is
ask Michelle, let me ask
Yeah.
you this question because I think this is what everyone wants to know. Why do you believe Hartshorn did in the autopsy didn't say he's dead first? Can you just walk us through what we already know Hartshorn
Yeah.
knew Courtney, but besides
Yeah.
that little Roro is gonna love that. When
Yeah,
tell that part.
you might need to give us a little bit of context and
Oh,
background when we're bringing
not
in
yet, not
when we're
yet.
bringing in characters or other
Oh
individuals
yeah,
into the
no,
story. Give us a
let-
little bit of a pretext so we're
right.
dialed
Oh
in.
no, it gets better. But just
Okay, I'm ready.
let
I'm ready,
her.
bro.
Yeah, so let's just say
Yeah,
Hartshorn. Why doesn't Hartshorn say he's already dead
sure.
in
Also,
that
Michelle,
autopsy?
sadly, because of YouTube, we need to use the word
Oh
H
yes.
instead of the other
Got it.
word, just so you know.
Yes,
It's
got
okay.
it.
It's been very much in context, so
Or the
don't worry. YouTube will
brown,
be okay. But it's
brown.
going to be one of those ones where YouTube hears it too
Okay.
many times. But thank you.
Perfect. So Dr. Hartshorn was right out of medical school at this point, right? So he's fresh, he's right new to the scene. Why they allowed him to do this autopsy, I'm not 100% sure because they had to know people were going to question it. Hartshorn actually in the autopsy did say, this is this person took their own life because of the scene. He did not say that I can tell this person took their own life because of the autopsy. So he said the cop said there was a suicide. I'm so sorry. The cop said there was an unaliving note, and that's why we believe this is that. I think that he didn't realize that perhaps the necrosis meant Cobain was dead earlier. But the thing was, he was never going to go up against Don Cameron. The detective who went into this, his name is Don Cameron, and he's the lead homicide detective at the time. He's a big player. He worked on the Bundy case. He's in all Ann Rule's books about Ted Bundy. He was a big bully, and he told everybody what to think and
Well,
what
do
was
you
going to
think,
happen.
Michelle, do you think, just sticking with the scientific side, do you
Yep,
think that he leaves it kind of ambiguous
I
in the
do. Yes.
autopsy? Okay, yeah,
Yes.
that's what
So, okay, yeah, really good point. So, yes, he says there's necrosis, which again needs to be interpreted by basically
Mhm.
another pathologist. He says there's no aspirated blood in the lungs. The lungs are underweight. So, yes, he did not. I don't think Hartshorn lied in the autopsy. I think he
Right.
leaves it ambiguous enough to say the only reason we believe this person took their own life is because of the note at the scene and because the detective said that.
You think he
No,
was afraid to say
oh,
he was
100%.
deceased? He's
Yeah,
deceased because then at that point he's kind of looking through certain goggles,
yeah,
right? And he's like, wait a minute. He's like, kind of look over his shoulder. If I say this right here that I think he's already deceased, we got a problem. Like,
absolutely.
I
Mm.
got you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And Hartshorn knew the game at the SPD. Again, you're talking about somebody, a huge bully who no one was going up against Cameron. Cameron ended up having to retire in disgrace because one of the cops working under him stole money from a crime scene and Cameron helped him put it back. So, but Cameron had the most people, the most cops at his funeral ever in the history of Seattle. This
Oh
guy's a
yeah.
big
Tell her.
deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
let's go backwards. So tell Roro how Hartshorn died first, and then tell him how he knew Courtney Love.
Okay, are you sure you don't want to tell this? Because Chris,
No, I want
this
you
is
to. No,
your arena.
no,
Okay.
no, no.
So Hartshorn used to actually put on punk shows, and he put on Nirvana shows, and he put on a whole show, and he was sleeping with Courtney. So yeah, we know that.
No conflict of interest
Not
there.
at all, right? None at
Yeah,
all.
yeah. And then Hartshorn, right after Kurt died, he moved from Seattle to Florida, and he was like, I can't. I mean, we've talked to a few of his friends, and they basically said he had a lot of guilt. This is hearsay. We obviously can't talk to Nick Hartshorn. He allegedly had a lot of guilt. Interestingly, there's a poster of Kurt above the autopsy table in
Mhm.
Hartshorn's office. So
Right.
he's, imagine this rock star that Hartshorn admired, and he's doing the autopsy on this guy. So so he ends up moving to Florida, and he takes up base jumping, which is, a very risky sport, and ends up dying in a base jumping accident that most of his colleagues would
Okay,
say,
look, this is like a really badly written Netflix crime drama. The guy who done the autopsy moved to another state, took up base jumping, and then passed away doing base jumping.
How many doctors do you know take up base jumping?
Dr. Evil. That's it. Right, that's it. That's it. That is, it's beyond comprehensible. It's obviously tragic when people lose their lives, right? But when we're talking about this in the grand context of this case, we're adding layers of suspicion on layers of suspicion. Look at how we assess things like 9/11, grand conspiracies, where we've been given a public or a statement from the powers that be that later becomes unraveled. It reeks of that.
Well, and don't forget, Detective Terry dies like a month or two later, right, Michelle? You could talk about, he dies people thought there was a conspiracy and he was murdered. I believe what happened was he walked into a bad scene of guys. Because remember, the woman, I think we know her, she interviewed one of the criminals, right? One of the guys that was involved in the shooting of Detective Terry on the side of the highway. But he is in that photo, isn't he, of the famous picture? He's standing behind the greenhouse on that back patio, right? With the uniform. Yeah.
Terry. Yeah. And Terry, Courtney was an informant. She was a drug informant for the SPD. And so she would always talk to Detective Antonio. Crazy. I know, which is wild, right? I mean, she played every angle. She grew up reading books about cults. She knew exactly what she was doing. So she was a drug informant for the SPD, and Terry was her contact. And then a few months later, Terry was, he was off duty and driving on I think it was the 405, and there was a car stopped, and he stopped to check what was happening. And he got shot to death.
And they tried to tie that railroad into the mysticism of the Cobain death. Was he murdered? Now, also Kristen Paff, you could bring that up if you want to. Now, she died, but you could tell that quick story, because Eric Erlandson, that name needs to come up today. I'm telling you right now.
It's quite a long list of people.
We could talk for a week.
And I'm just going to bring up, I mean, this is Kristen, right? This lady here.
Yeah.
Hang on, let me just.
Yeah, Michelle should talk about
that's Kristen
too, with Eric. Yeah.
Okay.
So Kristen Pfaff, beautiful young lady, incredibly talented. She had planned to leave Hole. She was in Courtney's band, the bass player in Courtney's band, and she had planned to leave Hole. Some people think that her and Kurt were having an affair. I don't tend to believe that, but fact is that she died 3 months later. Pages were ripped out of her journal. We know that because I have a friend at the SPD who worked there at the time, and the journal. Courtney tried to get Kristen's journal. They would not. The SPD would not release it to her. Fortunately, this young lady died of a heroin overdose in her bathtub as she was moving back from Seattle to where she was originally from. She was leaving Hole. I mean, you just don't leave Courtney. It's like a fucking.
And who else was there, right? Around the right time of that, who finds her, I believe, was Eric Erlandson.
So Erlandson, so actually, Kristen's friend was there, and he was waiting in the van outside. So she had all of her stuff packed up to move, right, from her Seattle apartment, but she kind of lived in a crappy area. So her friend was waiting in the van, waiting for her to, they were going to spend the night and then start driving back home the next day. He's sleeping in the van. He sees Eric Erlandson go into Kristen's apartment. Eric and Kristen used to date, right? So they have this history. We know Eric Erlandson was there when she died. Eric left at some point, and then Kristen's found dead the next day. So who brought her the heroin? What happened when she died? We don't know. I believe that Eric killed her.
At
Courtney's behest.
I won't go that far because I don't know too much about Kristen's thing, but let's remember, who flies up to Seattle on Monday, April 4th to go see what's going on at Kurt's house?
Yeah.
And even Joseph will barely talk about him and the movements, and we haven't even stepped into that puddle yet. But so Eric Erlandson needs to come forward. He needs to talk. And so does Renee Navarrete. He needs to, these people, we're going to get into that here in a minute, but
Sure.
we can transition because there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of players.
Okay. Well, I'm with you. Let's just recap quickly, right? Because we've got the suspicious puncture wounds and the amount of liquid in his syringes being very suspicious. We've got the autopsy being withheld from the public, the photos. We've got the autopsy, the guy in charge of the autopsy dying in a base jumping accident. We then have other suspicious deaths surrounding Kurt play out with, listen, if we've got rumors of affairs and all of this, it's just strengthening why else would pages of her diary go missing?
Yeah. And, the pages were from the week Kurt died. So you look at the dates.
Isn't that totally normal, Michelle?
Well,
this sounds totally normal.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting, too, that no one saw the autopsy for 30 years?
Yeah.
Because no one even
we'll get
had
to
it.
that as well.
Yeah,
we'll get to that.
So there's more like secrecy, right? And if you know the story of the autopsy, like with Gary and Leland having it and then Gary finding it, and then so it's like, well, and then TMZ has it, right? And Tom Grant, I guess, gives it to him. Oh, there's the autopsy. And I asked this today, where the hell is Tom Grant today? Where are you, dude? Where are you at? Because you've been running your mouth for and saying stuff about me, saying stuff about Michelle. Come say it to our face, dude. I heard you retired. I heard we just sent you to pasture.
Yeah, it's funny. He's like an 80-year-old man who loves to talk shit about me and
Where's
Chris.
he now?
And yeah. And when Joe first came forward, Tom knew about Joe back in the 90s and never bothered to talk to him or Bonnie.
Do you believe that, though? Do you believe that or no?
That he knew about Joe?
Yeah, because I never knew. I mean, I didn't know much about the case till 3 years ago.
Well, you heard the recording, right? Where Courtney's telling him to talk to Joe.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know the depth, kind of what he knew.
You're
so
right.
People say, is Tom just a bad investigator, or is he on the take? Is he getting money? I tend to think he's a bad investigator.
Well, let's talk about this. So, Roro, you know who Tom Grant is, right? In the scheme of this.
You might need to. I'm a face person.
Okay,
I'm the worst with names.
I know. Let me just say it real quick.
Take it through it.
You're a young guy too. You're young. Good.
I'm like in my mid 40s, bro. I'm in my mid 40s, bro. Okay.
Okay. Anyway, we're not going to give Tom Grant much pulpit. Trust me.
Okay.
Anyway, the original investigator worked for Courtney. He's kind of the brand behind the murder thing in the beginning, which was good, right? Tom did a lot of great stuff. If you watch Soaked in Bleach, if you see his work, he recorded a lot. There's a lot of stuff he did. Okay. So, but the names, you're right. Courtney did say Joseph Burns and Bonnie Dillard, and she did say these names way back in the day. But back to Tom real quick. We have to discuss about Kurt's body. Okay. We need to put this to bed for all the people out there who are watching and who are going to watch. I'm going to give you my thing, and I want Michelle to say her thing. Okay. I just watched Soaked in Bleach. Watching that again with new eyes is totally different than watching it when you don't know Michelle or me or Jason or any Matt Ricker or any of the people or Joseph or watch it when you know what you know today. It'll all make sense. Okay. I think Tom Grant, we know, lied about there was a light on the garage blinding him. That's not true. There was no light. He admitted it to someone I know that he's told them. Okay. I never should have said that. You're right. You shouldn't have. Later, he says, I didn't know the greenhouse was there. And when they heard it on the radio, he goes to Dylan, what greenhouse? So I want Michelle to give us her take. I'll give him an out, a soft out. But remember, when you drive your car in that driveway, you see the greenhouse right in front of you. And to say, oh, it was dark out. Yeah, it's night. Oh, it was raining. It's Seattle. How are these excuses? So I
Okay.
want Michelle to describe. I don't know if he saw the body to this day. I can't figure it out. I really don't know if he lied about it or he didn't search something. He went there twice. He was there around 2 a.m. on the 7th, and he was
Wait,
there
this
around
is this is
9:30.
this is the guy, the lead investigator of the case
He
that
works
was
for
driving
Courtney.
up the road and never observed a greenhouse.
He drove. He almost hit it with his car. He
Okay.
almost drove into the garage when you're in that
Interesting.
driveway.
Interesting. And I just want to confirm this is soaked in
Yes.
bleach. This is what we're referring to, right?
Statler's thing. Where's Statler at? Where's he at? We had some people reach out to him. What's up, dude? What's up? Where are you guys at? Max Wallace, what's up? Where are you at? You guys are running your mouth. And then they're saying shit about me. Sorry to swear.
That's
And
right.
they're talking about me. Come, where are you guys at? Look what Michelle just did. Okay, in the middle of Epstein and Trump, she got to have Cobain talked about in the middle of those two. Think about what she did. Where are you guys at? Start helping out. You know, these are the original Ian Halperin. Where's he at? Charles Cross died, right? I think Charles Cross died. Where's what's his name? Everett True.
All right. Okay. Well, look.
Anyway,
Are you?
I want Michelle's take on
Yeah,
Tom
that's
Grant seeing
well, I was
the
just going to
body or
circle
not.
back to. Yeah, I was just going to circle back to that, Michelle. If you want to. Oh, also, just at this point, make sure you guys like and subscribe, share this out. I think this is a really interesting conversation, and there's a lot of points that are kind of join a lot of dots to get here together, Michelle and Chris. So thank you again for being here. But yeah, Michelle, please continue on and keep us going on this.
I mean, I love that Chris and I are sort of playing like, louder cop, quieter cop, because usually I'm the one screaming in the videos. So now Chris gets to do it and I get to look calm, which is great. So Grant goes there with Dylan Carlson. And again, I will state this, not speaking for anyone else on my team or anyone else here. I believe that Dylan Carlson helped in the homicide of Kurt Cobain. So Dylan and Tom are buddying up, and Courtney wants Dylan to go with Tom to search for Kurt. Why would that make sense? So let's say if Courtney perhaps was one of the planners of this homicide, would she maybe want someone she knows can direct Grant everywhere? If Dylan knows exactly where Kurt is, he knows where to tell Grant to look, where to tell Grant not to look. So yeah, Chris is right. He claimed he drove into the driveway and didn't see the greenhouse. The greenhouse is right above the garage. You literally can't miss it. And especially in the dark, I think, because you can see that there's another building up there. So I find it very, suspicious. Like he said, there was no light. That was Grant's excuse. It was raining and there was no light. Well, it actually wasn't raining. So you can check you can check the historical weather data. Maybe some light drizzle, but it was not a big rainstorm like we're sort of led to believe.
So do you believe he saw it, the body? Or do you
No.
believe he really didn't go over there?
I don't believe he saw the body, but I think Dylan knew exactly where the body was and kept Grant away from it. And even Grant said, he goes, I mean, Dylan wouldn't have anything to do with Cobain's death, but I think he might have seen the body because, he was acting really weird that time he got in the car. And it's like, wait, so you're telling me he's lying to you about seeing Cobain's body, but he couldn't possibly have anything to do with his death?
And you're
Like,
the
it's
PI
bizarre.
and you're with them. Kurt's missing. You're going to become a super famous PI if you find him. You'll be writing checks. Yeah, you'll be making money the rest of your life. Any PI, and I'll speak for a PI that I know that Michelle knows too, that's involved in this, and they're pissed, but it's okay. We'll smooth them out. Any PI would be in the woods, in the attic, upstairs, in the basement, in the driveway, down the road. They would not. Because Dylan goes, oh, don't go in there. He's not in there. You think the PI would not go in there? That they don't listen. He has the murderer, one of the murderers, with him, potentially in his head at first. Think about that. Kurt's best friend.
It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. Yeah,
Ron, he also bought the shotgun, right, Dylan?
Yeah, in his receipt, in his name.
Yeah. So again, you go, okay, but we're not going to look at this guy.
Yeah.
So the guy that bought the shotgun is also the guy who said, "Don't check inside there." Is that what you're saying? Nothing suspicious about that at all.
We don't know if that's what he said because that's what they say he said. So, and Mark Lanigan now decides that he's there. after all these years. Now Mark says, I was there and I had a cigarette and I dropped the cherry off my cigarette. You know what Tom Grant told one of my guys? He wasn't there. He never was there, Mark Lanigan with Dylan Carlson. So why is he lying about that? So we'll get to them.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy too, because like Chris was saying, and Chris has done a lot of cases, but everyone I talked to, like Brian Burnett, our forensic scientist, has said, I've never worked on a more complicated case where there are so many moving parts and so many people lying. There has never been anything like that, you know, and I'm talking about somebody who's worked against the Department of Defense, like where they're still after Brian today, right? Like the DOD is still monitoring him. And the Cobain case, he's never dealt with anything like that. And then, you know, let's not go into this too much, but the harassment and abuse that I assume Chris also gets. And look, I'm not, you know, despite the pink hair, I'm not ultra liberal by any stretch of the imagination, but the boys club mentality that fortunately Chris has never had with me, and I don't think you have that either, Ron, but like, oh, a woman shouldn't be involved in this, has reared its ugly head more than once.
I was raised by two women, so
there we go. You know, and so it's like, I mean, it's such bullshit, you know, like I think, and Chris said, when we got all this stuff released, we didn't hear from any of those people saying congratulations. We heard, oh, Michelle's a liar. And
right.
Like, wait, what? But you believe
Joseph's,
was
yeah, right? Joseph's a Nazi and he's an anti-Semite, and they're just saying all. It's like, wait, time out, hold on.
Wait, how did we get to anti-Semite? Like, how did we get to
that? Joseph's like not, you know, he just loves the culture of that. You'll see. But my point, and if you read the books, I mean, this book and then the other book that I wrote, that one I didn't write this book. Okay, this is Joseph's statement. The first book I wrote, Smells Like Heaven, which was a book that fictionalized a love story between Joseph and Bonnie. And it told the story of how they met and all this stuff. And some of the Nazi themes come in. And I don't want to hear anybody talk about that anyway. Go watch Hollywood. Why don't you go see how many movies they make? You gonna tell them to stop saying it? So the point is, when Joseph started to come forward, and we can get into that because Michelle had a big to do with Joseph basically after I kind of met him. But it's like, that's not important. There's all these other people there. I believe there's 9 people. Michelle and I have different views about the day, who's there, and that's fine. I've always known that it doesn't matter. It's like the other cases I do too, OJ. Everyone's going to have a little bit of I don't care what day Kurt was unalived. I don't care. I know he was, and we'll figure it out eventually. Okay. And today's a weird day. It's April 5th, the day that they say he unalived himself. Yep. It's also Easter, which also Joseph says is when Kurt was unalived on Easter, April 3rd. Okay. So we've got like a kind of double entendre here in a weird way. But back to Tom Grant's thing. We can move off of him. I will say this. I talked to him on the phone. It was sad. It was sad to have him call me names. He's yelling at me on the phone. It's like, dude, I'm not here like as the hammer of the gods, right? I'm here to help you. I'm here to help Kurt. Okay? You say you wanted to solve this murder for all these years. You made it your brand, dude, for 30 years. You and Neil Lowe coming out, and now Neil Lowe's popping his head out. But every time we bring up Jessica Hopper, Callie, Renee, Jen Adamson, you guys don't want nothing to do with it. You don't want anything to do with the people. Murders are done by people. Okay.
Well, it's the extent of the cover up that seems to be shining through on this case. And I think that's where I think a lot of people start seeing a bigger picture, right? Because there was a lot of, I mean, when we talk about royalties and the power of music and the sales that happen after an artist dies, you can see the evil cogs, right? Whether it's, you know, you think it's Courtney, whether it was a lover's feud, whether it was some mad decision made around a table for financial benefit. There's arguments for all of it, right? And
jealous best friends.
It could be anything, right? But the focus has to be on the individuals who've taken action, which is Courtney making sure nobody can delve into this properly, right? Which is incredibly sus. I mean, I can understand from releasing them to the public, Kurt's, you know, legacy, him on the floor, but that doesn't necessarily mean excluding from everyone being able to privately investigate, surely. And it just seems, it reeks a cover up. and there's too many underlying subtext stories, and it's definitely. I don't know where. Yeah, I don't know where it ends up, but I know.
2015, whatever
Sorry, Todd.
that
Chris, just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. So I don't know where it ends up, but what you said, Chris, is right. It's not necessarily about how we all get to the same point, what the days and things like this, but it's the conclusion that matters, that we all need to focus on. And it seems to be unanimously that this needs to be reopened. And, continue on with both of your findings. And sorry for interrupting you, Chris, please.
No, I just want to say, and I'll let Michelle talk about this because this is important. In 2015, whenever this soft reinvestigation was, right? Okay. That was pathetic. Like when that got, I'll let Michelle take it from here.
Sure.
Talk about that, Michelle, this reinvestigation, and then his findings and what he decides after that.
Awesome.
So he's talking about, it was 2014, because I think it was the 20th anniversary of Cobain's death. And it's a detective named Mike Szynski, who basically was just there to toe the company line. He was not doing any kind of real investigation. He was just there to say, yeah, I looked through everything. Everything the detectives came up with in 94 is exactly right. Trust it,
insane.
take my word for it.
Yeah,
but the interesting thing is he does a 6-minute interview and he goes, listen, Cobain took enough heroin to kill him 10 times over, and he would have died from the heroin if he didn't use the shotgun first. So even Detective Szynski knows that Kurt would have died from heroin. He just thinks Kurt had like 5 minutes. But if you talk to any pathologist, they know, and there's a slight range, but this affects you very quickly. Like you can't use your limbs within about 15, 20 seconds. So no, he wasn't using a 7-pound, 5-foot shotgun after, being incapacitated.
Not even as far as that, Michelle. I would like to see you do your buttons up on your cuffs after you've had a done of that stuff. Do you know what I'm saying?
I couldn't do them up now. It would take me a while. Being stone cold sober, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did the pictures, Michelle. Weren't the pictures finally developed?
Yes.
Then talk about that.
Yeah. So they had, rolls of photos that they had never developed. And fortunately, so here's an interesting thing that you should probably know as well. Courtney had her lawyer send a letter, and most people don't know this. She had her lawyer send a letter to the SPD demanding that they destroy all the evidence in Kurt's death. That has literally never happened. I've talked to judges, prosecutors, other experts. That has never happened in history where a loved one has demanded the evidence of their spouse's death be destroyed. Never happened. Why do you think that is, that she wants that evidence destroyed? So they end up, and the SPD doesn't comply. Fortunately, they don't destroy the evidence, but they ended up finally getting the photos printed in 2014. So that's why they look so bad. They're green, they're grainy, because if they didn't get them developed by that point, they may have degraded to the point where they were completely unusable.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'll show you an example. Just 1 second. There you go. That's what you mean by the green and the grainy, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
The deterioration of the film.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, Chris, go.
No, I was trying to lose my thought. Hold on. Well, my question too is the Ben Statler thing. Wasn't that coming out right around this time, Michelle? Where they knew it was going to come out, so it was kind of softly triggering this relook, right? And they went pretty far with with Soaked in Bleach. Roro, you'll love this. Now, in Soaked in Bleach, they also talk about. You'll hear the cops, or I think it's Mike, the guy you're talking about, says, "Well, if patrolmen go to the scene and they feel it's a suicide, we don't even call the detectives."
Right?
Like,
yeah.
What are you talking about?
That was mad, right? When you realize how, can you imagine, right? Just imagine, we've all gone to like Burger King, right? And someone's had a terrible day that's serving us, and we're like, what is going on? The same applies for every other job, right? People are going to have crap days. You imagine going in and just on a whim, because you need to get home or whatever, announcing that there's no need to look into this. It's a clear-cut case. It's quite crazy, the lack of layers of safety for that initial step, because that initial step seems to be all that matters, is what we're going to brand this case as. And
it goes with what you're saying. It's what you're saying, because you're kind of like the observer, right? You're like the audience right now, for me and Michelle in a way. And you're like, wow, there's a lot of stuff. Well, 100%. Here's another one that the Seattle PD, that's their protocol, that patrolmen. That's why Tom Grant says they're not trained in homicide investigation. Why would they even be making the decision? And it's not some normal guy. It's the biggest rocker of the time.
Right. Well, it's one of those plausible loopholes, isn't it?
Right.
Well, if this is standard practice for this level of police and they're brought in to do that, there's no one at fault, right?
Yeah,
and
we don't need to look at it. Oh, the patrolman said it looked like
right. Well, that's it.
No. Oh, okay.
And when you look at the grand scale of conspiracy, none of that helps back up the official story whatsoever, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Michelle, continue on with taking us through all this.
So another thing that we did, and one of our teammates, Lisa, said to me when we first started doing this, she said, no one's ever tested the shotgun. Why has that never been tested? Grant allegedly had the exact same shotgun for years, never tested it. Nobody ever tested to see if Kurt could reach the trigger because it's a really long shotgun. We did test, and we believe he might have been able to just reach it.
Right.
But the interesting thing that we found out is, so in Soaked in Bleach, it talks about the shotgun shell being on the wrong side, and it is. So the ejection chamber of the gun is facing to the right, and there's a shotgun shell on the left. Up on Kurt's jacket. So it's not just over to the left, it's actually on Kurt's jacket. So we tested a few different things, but what we actually found out is in the SPD report, they say that Cobain's hand was on the forward barrel of the gun. It's about 12 inches. If you measure, it's about 12 inches, depending on the width of his hand. And that shotgun will not eject a shell at all. Even if you had your hand on it like this, even if you were barely holding it, a hand on the forward barrel prevents the recoil mechanism from working. There should be no shell at all. So yes, the shell is on the wrong side, but there shouldn't even be a shell. So we, when we went into the SPD, so I went in with someone, Mark Larson on my team is, he's the former district attorney in King County. So he did that for 35 years. This is a heavy hitter. This isn't a conspiracy guy. This is, somebody who knows the kind of evidence you need to get a conviction. And he was very conservative as well, very conservative district attorney. If he didn't have enough evidence, they weren't prosecuting. He worked with us and after a few weeks determined, this needs to be reopened. So he and I go into the SPD November 4th. We have a meeting with the deputy mayor, the mayor's assistant, the chief of police, Chief Barnes, his lead detective, Nicole. And it's kind of a joke. Barnes has no interest in reopening the case, and that's very obvious very quickly. But we bring in a video showing him, hey, look, the shotgun won't eject a shell. What we are asking you to do is take Kurt's gun, and we had 2 guns, by the way, 2 ballistics experts confirmed this. You guys have Kurt's gun? Check. Will it eject a shell with a hand on the forward barrel? Where your SPD reports say Kurt's hand was, will it eject a shell? That's it. Go test it and show us. Prove us wrong, right?
That's another point to Team Rookie Murder, right?
Yeah.
It really is. It's the shell's on the wrong side, the hands over the ejection system.
Yeah.
This is piling up, Michelle. We're 45 minutes in, and the pile is high. Okay,
that's the thing, Ron. If it was one thing, 2 things. Oh, maybe we could write those off. Maybe it was an anomaly. Kurt got lucky that day. He just did all that heroin and survived long enough to do it.
We haven't even told them. We'll probably not even get to everything today. We just won't. There's too much. But I will say this about SPD. I'll give them credit for meeting with you, Michelle. I'll be really honest.
They had to, Chris. Mark was friends with the deputy mayor.
Crazy.
Well, I had to beat people over the head in LA on OJ. So I know what you got there was very rare. So I would like to give a shout out to SPD because I do hope they do something. I know they're saying no, and everyone's getting mad. And, we've had other people go to the SPD. I actually talked to them before I even did one lick of evidence, one lick of work. I always do that. I kind of trap them a little, right? Oh, I said, you know what they did at Tupac in Vegas, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And this was the lead detective in the cold case, one of the homicide detectives. You'd probably know who I'm talking about. And I set him up because I needed to hear it from them. Before I was going to dive in, I wanted to hear it from them, how negative they were. And he laughed. What do you mean, Tupac what? Well, after 30 years, they got Tupac's, Keefe D, and they're doing the Tupac. Would you guys ever do something like that? What are you talking about? What about Cobain? And he's just like, Cobain? Oh, we got nothing to do with that. You know what? Started getting all negative. I said, have a nice day. Like, it's all I needed. I just wanted to get my little moment there, and I got it. And Michelle has taken it all the way to A to Z. And look, they might be looking at it. I will say that they're not going to tell us, like we're doing an investigation. They could be looking at it. So I want to leave that door a little cracked, and Michelle can take it from there.
I would like to say I'd be more than happy to dial in on specific topics of this and expand on all this evidence, because I imagine this is the Cliff Notes version of all your work, Michelle and Chris as well. So if you ever want to dial in on specific elements and build it all up, I'm more than happy to, try and arrange all that, because I think there's so much that people want to understand, and the brief summaries are great, but I personally would love to dive into it further. So please take your time, carry on with it all. And again,
I want to say this too. Yeah, we will. I think we should get into the people, Michelle, a little bit too. I'll say a couple of things here. To the woman Kennedy, the reporter, you're a disgrace. And when you went on there and you did your thing, come say it to me and Michelle. You're a disgrace. You're a clown. You went on there. You saw some news because you worked at MTV. MTV was practically culpable in the cover up too. So we don't want to hear anything you have to say. She went on there. She's a famous ex-journalist, big Fox right winger now. Oh, Kurt unalived himself. Why don't you guys just let him be? Come say it to us. Why don't you do a debate? Because you won't. Because you don't even know anything about the case. Okay, that was disgraceful. And the stool thing, there never was a stool wedged against the door. That needs to be put to bed. And even Matt Ricker did a good story he met the guy who told him, and Tom Grant, he told it in Soaked in Bleach, there was no stool wedged against the door. So the heroin thing or the H thing is wrong. The stool thing's a joke. The gun flipping upside down is a joke. Michelle's thing about, we didn't even know that. I don't even own a gun. So when she figured that out with the guy, that guy did it in the videos, good for him. These people are trying to help. These people are trying to help. Okay.
Why do you think then, before we move on or before we continue, why do you think we're getting this huge pushback from the Seattle police? Is it just the tradition of the boys in blue protecting the boys in blue? At that level of it all, is it just back to basics for cops protecting cops, or do you think there's a bigger side to it with the Seattle PD, Michelle?
Yeah, I think it's cops protecting cops. I talked to Mike Carter, who's a 50-year veteran crime writer at the Seattle Times. He's the one who did the article in the Seattle Times where we were, we actually made the front page, which was really incredible. And it was interesting. I'll tell you the story super quickly. So Mike worked with Mark Larson. Like, he would write stories about Mark as a DA. So sometimes the stories would be positive, sometimes they'd be negative. But Mark and I were talking about it, and he's like, this guy's good. If he thinks there's something here, people will believe him, because he's very, again, he has a lot of integrity. I'm going to go. Mark drives our 200-page dossier with the ballistics, the handwriting, the forensic report. He drives that to Mike and hands it to him. 3 hours later, Mike Carter calls me and goes, well, shit, maybe Richard Lee was right. So Richard Lee is conspiracy guy who's, he's wild. He's the exact guy you would think, he's like, should be wearing a tinfoil hat. But he said for years and years before anybody else got involved that this was a homicide. And, he was kind of, I think, in the punk scene. So I think he had heard things through the grapevine. And he was always in Mike Carter's face, and Mike was like, no, it's, this guy took his life. But once Mike read everything we gave him, he changed his mind and said, I will at least say that this case needs to be reopened. So I think anybody who's really looking at the evidence goes, well, let's put it to bed. Fine, fuck it. I think he took his own life, but reopen it. Like, let's put it to bed. And that's what I find so confusing. Why don't you put it to bed? Why don't you prove us wrong? The SPD and the medical examiner, and I'll tell you what the medical examiner told us too, because this is a good one. They have the evidence that we don't have. If there's aspirated blood in Kurt's lungs that weren't noted in the autopsy, great. The medical examiner has the slides. Prove us wrong. If that's not blood on Kurt's jeans from him being moved around at the scene after he was shot, show us. Show us that it's mud. Show us that it's something else. That's all we're asking, is for us to be proven wrong with the evidence that we have no access to. And so
Yeah.
when we gave that same dossier to the medical examiner, and we had forensic pathologists work on this, by the way, and we think it proves unequivocally that it was a homicide. So we sent it to Dr. Lacey, who is the King County medical examiner, and he said, well, Cobain's death was already counted as a suicide, as an unaliving, and we don't want to fuck with statistics. So he didn't want to change it because it was already statistically counted, not because it's true, not because it's the right thing to do, not because kids are still taking their own lives because they believe Kurt did, because they are.
Mhm.
And I brought that up in the SPD meeting. I told Chief Barnes that that's still happening. And, interestingly, another thing Chief Barnes said to me, he's watching the video, and Chief Barnes, as you can imagine, does know guns. He's kind of not paying attention through most of it. But when he sees the video, he goes, oh, yeah, that's a long recoil shotgun. Of course, it wouldn't eject a shell. So Chief Barnes knows. They know.
These are these are prominent individuals that should be paid attention to.
Yeah.
Why
absolutely.
is there? It's just the continued sweeping under the carpet. There has to be more to this than boys protecting boys. There has to be, and to not mess with statistics. That man should not be in charge of any sort of criminal case or any sort of police investigation or anything of the sort, if that's their attitude.
Well, I think I can.
That's a terrifying concept. It really is. Sorry, Chris, on you go.
It's all right. I can speak to that because I think, I know for a fact I've done this angle more than Michelle probably ever will in her life. And I hope that's okay. I've dealt with the police, DAs, lawyers for over 10 years. I have over 7 civilian cases that I work. I worked over 5 very high profile cases. Most of the time, the police want nothing to do with you. I actually had texted Michelle a long time ago, even hinting at this to her, okay? Saying, keep going, do your thing. We didn't really know each other. Do your thing. Yes, I get it. You're going to go. When you go that far, though, you're going to see it. And it's a paradigm, and they want nothing to do with you telling them, even if you had a video of it, okay? Yeah. I have a child case right now, tons of evidence. They still won't even interrogate the suspect. And so cops, there's this deadly cocktail of ego and a little bit of stupidity. When you mix those two together, you're toast. And even Jason Jensen deals with this a lot too, when he deals with police too. He does cases and he goes to them, and the same thing, want nothing to do with it. Just like Tom Grant. Tom Grant took up Harvey Levin to Seattle to go and question, okay? And some of that's played out and soaked in bleach, but they don't have Harvey there. Harvey was there witnessing it, and Michelle can even talk about that. Harvey was there. Why don't you guys, it's a suicide. It looks like an unaliving to me. And it's like, no one's even investigated anything. So there's too much on the cover up. It will blow your mind, Roro. It just gets worse. It gets worse.
It's already kind of blowing my mind when you stack up. There's too many stacks. I thought there would just be one stack. We've got at least 3 stacks here.
There's more.
Well, this is the thing. I imagine, just keep us going, Michelle, with this, with the narrative.
I think we should get into the house, Michelle, a little bit and talk about people, and maybe you and I can debate something here, because people have waited years for you and I to debate each other, to put this stuff to bed. Okay, so I think we should talk about people.
Let's do it.
Do it.
So when I first started, I'll just talk about when I first started talking to Joe, and then Chris can segue into his thoughts. So when I first started talking to Joe Burns, he told me that, basically what I told you, that Dylan and 2 other guys that he didn't recognize, although I will say that I wasn't sure Joe was being completely
right.
I didn't think he was lying. I just didn't know if he was covering for someone or if he was scared of someone or why.
And that's to be expected. That's to be expected when you first get them.
And let's be real, Joe's the only person who's ever spoken about this publicly. So, who was there. So, I mean, that has to be something I think that people need to take into consideration. I think it was I think it was probably pretty terrifying for him. Joe spoke with our lawyer, and Mark thought he was being truthful. So, for people who say, oh, I don't believe this guy or whatever, because he was a user, still at the time he was still using. I mean, that's neither here nor there. This is not Joe, but most jailhouse snitches, most people who testify in court are former addicts. Right. They're people in jail. They're people that, no, they don't go to church every Sunday. I'm sorry that we don't have witnesses.
The
Exactly. Witnesses are almost never perfect human beings, right? So, so I believe Joe. I just thought there was more he wasn't telling me. Now I'll say, and I won't give too much away about what Chris is going to say, but as for one of the people that Joe says was there, Mark Lanigan, Chris is right. Mark did say he was there. Tom said he wasn't. I don't know what was going on there. My only thing about Lanigan is that he's dead and can't speak for himself. And I feel that the SPD or whoever investigates this case, whether it has to go to another, someone above the SPD, they need to determine who was there. I'm not going to indict Mark Lanigan because he's dead and can't stand up for himself. So okay. I just stick to, I don't know who else was there with Dylan. And that's sort of where I'm at. And now Chris has a much better sense of that.
Well, if we brought up Danny Rich's name, also that brings up that could be its own show because he was a fascinating individual. But I would say this real quick. Forget Mark Lanigan for a second. What I would say is years ago, supposedly Joseph Burns and Bonnie Dillard had begun talking to two men. Okay. One was in Europe. We won't say his name because he gets very upset. And there was another gentleman, Matt Ricker. We can say Matt's name because Matt wrote a book with Tom Grant. And Matt is an important person. And I think he should get his flowers as much as he goes up and down with me. Joseph and Bonnie were talking to two, let's call them internet sleuths. Right?
Okay.
And they're basically saying, we were there. Okay. We know what happened. Joseph, his memory's not the greatest. So he even forgets what he said 4 or 5 years ago, because this was kind of during the COVID time. Okay. Bonnie retracted after she tried to talk, whether she was bored during COVID. I don't know what the reason was. These guys were talking to her and calling her, messengering her. She retracted. Michelle has more contact with Bonnie than I do today. Okay. She needs to talk. She needs to come forward. That's a problem. Okay. So I want to talk about some people here.
Okay.
Purportedly, based on Joseph being our only witness that speaks and Bonnie, and let's put everything together from Courtney and Tom and all of them. We're going to say there's 9 people at the house when Kurt is unalived. 9. Okay. I'm going to name some of them and I'll let Michelle do a thing. Okay. Joseph Burns, Bonnie Dillard, Jessica Hopper, Jennifer Adamson, Renee Navarrete, Callie DeWitt. Okay, there's 6. If I take 3 more, the 3 killers, right? And I say Dylan Carlson plus 2. I believe Mark Lanigan's there. If Michelle doesn't, that's fine. Danny Rich played a game with us that he was there also. We don't know. We can't hard confirm. Danny died under mysterious circumstances last year. Okay. And some people think he's still alive. So my point is, I'll let Michelle, because I'm interested to hear Michelle's take on this. We know these people are there. There's corroboration by Bonnie and Joe, and also in the book, Everett True's book, which was written with Courtney Love. They are told to all be there. Eric Erlandson comes up on Monday, I believe. Okay, there's 10. Okay, then when Joseph says, well, I remember I saw some plainclothes police too. Wait, what? Well, they came at some point, they were there. 12 people? Now there's 2 more cops coming days after. What are they doing there? And Danny tried to say, well, Tom Grant was there too. Well, We don't know everything that Tom Grant did. We do know the house was surveilled by one of his guys. Where are those photos? That's in the police report on Monday, that he was surveilling the house from Monday on. Okay. But I'll let Michelle, I just wanted to name these people that do not speak, but I want Michelle to take it from here where her thoughts are.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris. And yeah, I believe that, I believe Callie was there. Bonnie Dillard was there. Jennifer Adamson is she was there. She was Callie's girlfriend. So he had 2 girlfriends at the time. And I want to tell you a little bit about who Callie is. Callie met Courtney when he was 15, and she groomed him and started sleeping with him. At this point, she's 24, 25 years old. She grooms Callie, has sex with him, and sort of, again, I like to say flying monkey, minion, whatever, but like she does with a lot of boys. I think again now, Courtney would be looked at very differently for a lot of the things she's done. But so that's how Callie enters Kurt's life, by being friends with Courtney. He becomes their nanny. So he is there, and he has 2 girlfriends. One is Jennifer Adamson and one is Jessica Hopper. I believe Jennifer Adamson was there when Kurt was killed. I believe that because we know people who talked to Jennifer Adamson, and she has told them, yeah, I was here. I was there the night Kurt died. Jennifer died suspiciously of a drug overdose in the early 2000s. So again, we can't corroborate that with Jennifer. Jennifer is Macaulay Culkin's half-sister, was Macaulay Culkin's half-sister. And so she was dating Callie at the time. I believe she was there. Bonnie Dillard, who now goes by Bonita Kelsey, she completely turned her life around. So she was dating Joe. And before that, she grew up in a religious household. She kind of was, rebelling, doing her thing with Joe. And she was dating him at the time Cobain died. After that, a few years later, she became very religious again. So she now works at the Salvation Army. She's a very upstanding citizen, has a family, lots of kids, and she doesn't want her name associated with what happened to Kurt. And you're like, okay, cool. But like, what would Jesus do? Would he allow you to continue? You can sleep at night knowing what happened to Kurt, and you're cool with that? Because here's what happened when we tried to contact Bonnie. She had hired a lawyer because someone on the internet was harassing her. I won't bother mentioning his name. There are a lot of mentally ill people who have associated themselves. Let's be real, Chris. Like, there are a lot of mentally ill people.
Wait, can you call them flying monkeys? Because I think that I like that term better.
Well,
if we say Roro, if we say 2 names right now, there's 2 male names. If we say them,
yeah, don't get us sued, man.
Michelle and I training order. Yeah.
We can
say them. I actually like the guy. I actually like him, but my thing is different. Michelle knows my thing. I dive in and like play the game, like pinball, but Michelle, go on about, please, Bonita Kelsey.
Yeah, Chris will talk to anybody. No, it's true. I mean, why do you think he talks to me? We have had words. Chris and I have fought a lot. And then 2 days later, he's like, so here's this thing. And it's like, okay. So anyways, so Bonita Kelsey, somebody was harassing her online and saying some pretty terrible things. And so she hired a lawyer to try to sue this person, but this person lives in Europe. So there was nothing they could really do. But I said, I contacted her lawyer and I said, hey, I have a channel. I will help set the record straight about Bonnie, if, woman to woman, if you feel like that would help. And so she was really nice. And she said, yeah. And so she said it was over the holidays, not last year, but the year before. And she said, let me talk to Bonita when she gets back from holidays, and we'll see. I never heard back from her, but I did give our lawyer, Mark Larson, Bonita's lawyer's name. And he reached out to Bonita's lawyer, and she refused to get back to him. So the third time he wrote and he said something like, it's professional courtesy to get back to another lawyer. Will Bonita give us a statement as to what happened to Kurt the night she was there. And she said, Bonita wants nothing to do with this, and she will not speak with you. Now, in my opinion, and I'm going to ask everybody out there, if you weren't there the night Kurt died, or if you didn't see anything, wouldn't you just say that and put it to bed? Why would you still be hiding behind a lawyer going like, I don't want to even talk about it?
Because she knows that we know she was there.
Of course she does. And, and everyone I've ever spoken with, said that's, extremely suspicious. We know she was there. Courtney has put her there at the night, Kurt died, out of Courtney's own mouth. So we know that Bonnie was there.
I did speak to Bonnie. I can bring it up if you
Yeah.
want. If we want to stay on Bonnie, I did talk to Bonnie one time. If you
Okay,
want
how
me to
did?
say how
Yeah,
it went.
yeah. Take us through how that went.
It was brief. I mean, we had to track down her husband, and her husband, we called on the phone, and out of nowhere, he goes, "Hold on a second," and he put her on speaker,
Yeah.
and she came over the phone. And right away, when I heard her voice, I knew this was a tortured soul. Right away, because I deal with a lot of accomplices, killers themselves, witnesses, weird people. Right away, and I did speak, and I did try to tell, me and my friend, she tried to blame Jen Adamson. She was trying to say it, and I'm like, wow, and then they hung up on me. So it was brief, but she did at least, I don't know why I think, to be honest, I think her husband's frustrated. I think when he's getting contacted, he's like, if that was my wife and she was at the scene of a famous unaliving, I'd be like, what are you hiding? Like, why these people are gonna bug us forever? Like, what are you guys doing? And being Christians, I'm a Christian, Catholic. That's not how we're taught either. That's not. If she wants to protect it a little bit, I get it. Protect it. Put it in a lawyer statement. Use your Fifth Amendment. Start using some of your rights, right? But give us something for Kurt, for the public. So, but anyway, that's my thing with her.
I mean, is there any evidence that these people have been legally silenced? Is there any documentation that they wouldn't be
No.
able to talk about or say, and that's
No.
why they're hiding behind these lawyers? No.
They haven't even been interrogated. They've
Yeah.
never even been interviewed. They were let to skate
That's-
free like crazy. Oh, this will drive you nuts, Ro. When you start to see this, you're going to be like,
I just don't. It just seems like multiple levels of incompetence. You surely
cover-up.
can't
It's
have
not
that many levels of incompetence. It reeks of cover up. It reeks of
Cover-up.
conspiracy. It really,
It's
and we've not
not-
even got to the freaking drag marks yet. So, yeah, I mean,
But back to the people, I think let Michelle, I'd like her to.
yeah,
she
of course.
got
Continue,
Callie,
Michelle.
She got Bonnie, maybe a little bit about Renee, right? And maybe now let's go to Renee and Hopper. Just give us a little back on them.
Before
So
you do that,
you-
Michelle, if you guys can just like and subscribe, make sure you share this out, do all that stuff. Just have to do this bit. I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so much. And I think we can all agree that it's about the truth and staying loyal to what actually happened to Kurt that day. And thank you for waiting there, Michelle. Please continue.
Of course. Like all of these people. So when Courtney first started, attaching herself to Kurt, and again, you have to understand that even she says that Kurt wasn't interested in her at the beginning. She forced herself on him, pretended to be the person he thought he wanted. She was not she pretended to be like Frances Farmer. Oh, I'm just like this poor woman who's been like attacked and maligned because I speak my mind, blah, blah, blah. So Kurt felt bad for her. And then 4 months in, she gets pregnant, right? So Kurt had a divorce in his life. He was a good guy. He was not going to leave the mother of his child. So she convinces him to marry her. And that's sort of how he got sucked into this entire thing. Courtney also has a long history of using drugs to control people. So she does it with her assistants, even to this day. I believe she did it with Kurt. And so she has these people in her life, like Callie. She was, again, grooming him. She used drugs to control him. People like Renee, who fortunately I believe now is clean. But all of these people after Kurt's death all got either money or jobs. So Hattie, who was one of the nannies, and she has passed away now of cancer, but she was one of the nannies. She ended up working at MTV for a while. Callie got a job at Geffen. Did Renee get anything, Chris?
I don't know. I don't think he got rehab. A lot of them got rehab money.
Yeah,
too.
they all got
did.
rehab money.
Mark Lanigan was paid.
She did pay for his.
Dylan was paid. They admit that, but yeah.
Yeah, we know Dylan was getting money orders at a mailbox actually in Bellevue, Washington for years and years. From Courtney. So he would get money orders every month from her. We actually have witnesses stating that. We know that all of these people benefited from Kurt's death.
Jessica Hopper
Jessica Hopper became a journalist, a rock journalist. Yeah.
Yes,
Because
yes.
of, and, she met Jessica again. Jessica was, 15, 16 years old,
Right.
writing a little zine, a punk zine talking about Hole. And so Courtney wrote her and was like, oh, you like Hole. And again, she grooms this 15-year-old girl
Right.
into, being her little friend, one of her little minions. And so she has all of these people. She either knows something on them, she has something on them, or she's given them something. So, and of course, in Jessica and Callie's case, she was in their lives from when they were very young. And you have to also remember that Courtney is well versed in cult mentality. So she read a lot of books about cults. She knew to separate Kurt from anyone who loved him. So all these people that actually cared about Kurt were not in his life anymore for the last, year and a half, 2 years of his life. She had made sure that the only people that were around him, even Pat Smear was her friend, right? That was her buddy.
Yeah.
And, he was, he was working at a record store poor before she got him into Nirvana. And, he had punk clout because he was, he's an old school punk rocker. So Kurt was like, fine, glad to have him in the band. But all of these people are Courtney's people. And so she has been able to control them ever since. I don't know if Bonnie is scared of Courtney. She might be. I think it's more like Chris said. I think it's more her husband kind of, controls what gets out about the family, and that's why she doesn't speak. I don't know how she sleeps at night.
Jessica Hopper too. If you could talk about Jessica when she got caught on that recording, the girl recorded her. Remember, I always thought that was a very telling. If you want to maybe brief on that.
Yeah, there's a video, Twist of Lemon, she's Irish, I believe. She went to a book signing and just asked Jessica about Kurt. Asked Jessica, because Jessica alleges that she was there right before Kurt died, that Kurt came into the bedroom with her and Callie and was singing a song about, shaved head girl or something because Jessica had shaved her head. And that's her thing. And then, Jessica said, and it was just getting really weird and I wanted to go home. And so she allegedly left the house, threw up on the driveway, and then her dad paid for Jessica to go home because she's underage, still at this point.
And now remember, with Jessica, let's stay on Jessica for a minute. Remember, in the book, in Everett True's book, she confirms she's still there till Monday or Tuesday. Now, at this point, whatever day you want to use, we already know Kurt's pretty much deceased. And if you want to say I get it. They love to push it to the 5th because then we get all these people out of the house, but they're still there. Jessica admits she's there and she confuses. Well, I don't remember if I left Monday or Tuesday. And, Callie was a mess and I felt like someone was going to die. And she says that on the record, even in the book. But yeah, go to what she gets kind of caught on audio.
Well, wait, just before we go into that, if we are sitting here, right, do we know?
And this is a sophomore in high school.
Yeah, who Courtney Love was before she met Kurt Cobain, right? She's had a couple of interviews where she's been outspoken about her knowledge of abuse and people like Weinstein and all this kind of stuff, right? Could we argue that this all got covered up because she had some sort of, I don't want to make huge speculations, right? But this seems like if this has been an intentional unaliving, it's been badly covered up, it's going to take a lot of power to get all of this swept under the carpet, right? It really is. Yeah. So is it possible that she has something on somebody that was protecting her? When we talk about 15-year-olds being groomed, there's a lot of alarm bells going off, with Hollywood, the music industry, creepy mofos, okay? And it seems to be that's the one topic where there is this massive layer of protection within that Hollywood circuit. Oh, yeah. Right? Especially when there's millions and millions in physical album sales, right?
Let's remember, I think you're wanting to say the word Illuminati, and it's okay to say it because
it's got lots of names, right? But it's the reality of the unaliving of Kurt and everything that Michelle's sort of laying out here. We've already established the fishiness of everything, the layers of conspiracy in this. So now the big question for me is, how do you get away with this? Okay. Because is Courtney Love in a position where anyone would give a rat's backside about protecting her? Probably not. So, with that in mind, what does she know? Right? What is the big
Well,
question? And it might not be that prevalent now,
no,
but we need to try. For me, and I want you to continue on with what you were saying, Michelle. I'm just interjecting here because there's little pieces that are coming together. And again, when we've got young children getting pulled into, I mean, let's be honest, if this was another two substance users, right, who liked a bit of music and weren't famous, no one's letting their 15-year-old kid hang around with these people. Okay.
right. Well,
The power and fame doesn't separate possible mindset. Now, I'm not saying every single user is X, Y, or Z. I'm just saying there's a lot of repeating sort of
well, I want to,
alarms.
yeah,
Let me go, Chris. Yeah.
let me
And then we'll
jump
come
in
back to you in
before-
1 minute, Michelle. I apologize for
Oh,
cutting you
no.
off there.
I'll segue it right to her. I'm just going to
Yeah.
say the Hollywood thing. You have to understand, Courtney became very entrenched in Hollywood right after this. She landed 2 major roles in 2 huge movies.
So everyone got a bonus, right? Everyone involved in this
Yeah.
seems to have got a bonus check
Larry
in some way,
Flint.
shape, or form.
Larry Flint and Man on the Moon. And she was a bright girl. I mean, Michelle might not want to hear any of this.
Oh no,
but
she's smart.
She's a smart girl. She was
Yeah.
charismatic. She was attractive. She had a weird look to her, but she knew what she was doing and she landed major roles. Oh, she's in the Epstein files. I don't know if you know that. She's also new Prince Andrew. Oh, so there's a few things that when you look back, yeah, her name is circled in the Epstein files. Why? Why did the butler circle the names? Because he meant these were the obvious people that he could prove were involved. So go look there first. But my point is in 1994, we didn't know about Epstein. Okay. So, but the Hollywood thing, yeah, she gets entrenched. She kind of becomes more famous because of Kurt's unaliving or death or what she thinks it is. And she becomes this god. And even today, I deal with the reporters all the time, weekly. They don't want to go against her. It's pathetic. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. And again,
Well,
sorry
I mean,
to
let
sidetrack
Michelle-
us there, Michelle.
Yeah.
It was just
No, that's okay.
I need to just sometimes get the recap done for my own brain because that's the big question now. And when
Michelle's
you're talking about the
expert on
Epstein
court.
files, I mean, it's Michelle, please carry on, and I'll save my comment for just in a moment or two.
You know, I mean, we could do a whole other podcast on Courtney.
Yeah.
In fact, I would,
Yeah.
it is sort of my mission every day to help people understand who this person is. She has murdered animals, and I don't mean by negligence. I mean, you know, her ex-husband, she murdered their cat and dog while he was at work one day. I mean, she has abused people to the point of where I talk to people today who still have PTSD from her chasing them down the street with a broken bottle. She pulled people by the hair out of
She
nightclubs.
attacked the girl on the couch. She had beat the girl with the bottle.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
maybe
She
bring
sounds
up
exactly like the
bring
sort
up
of
the
person.
Isaiah. Bring
Uh-huh.
up Isaiah's
Oh yeah. I
thing,
mean, if
too.
you don't know the Isaiah Silva case, and anybody out there who doesn't know it, just Google it. It's all legal. It's all this is all happening with the LAPD. Isaiah Silva was married to Kurt and Courtney's daughter, Frances. And I just want to put something out there for people to understand that, yes, Courtney is in the Epstein files and she is there for a reason. And she also has a daughter. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, so Isaiah Silva was married to Frances. Frances gave him the unplugged guitar as a wedding present when they got divorced. And they got divorced because Courtney was manipulating Frances with drugs. And Isaiah, didn't want anything to do with it. So when they got divorced, he didn't want to give the guitar back. It was a gift and he refused to give it back. So she hired Sam Lufty, that Hollywood goon, the Hollywood pit bull, to go in. And I mean, basically they were going to kill Isaiah, and they roughed him up, beat the shit out of him, got him into their car, and were driving down the 405, speeding in LA. And what they didn't realize is that there was a friend of Isaiah's at the house when this happened. So he got in his car and is following them and called 911. The cops stopped them on the 405, get him out of the car. And Lufty says to Isaiah, if you don't tell the cops this is just a prank, we're going to kill your daughter. And so he tells the cops, oh, yeah, these are just my college buddies. We're just fucking around. Sorry. So they let them go. They continue harassing Isaiah for the next year and a half. They assault his parents. They threaten his daughter. At one point, they break into his iMessage and send messages to his family and friends, trying to convince them that Isaiah is suicidal.
Right.
And why would that be?
Yep.
Again, it all smells exactly like what happened to Kurt. When somebody reads that lawsuit and then goes, oh, but I don't think she had anything to do with the death of her
Right.
husband. It's like,
Right.
what planet are you actually on? She is a
Yeah.
narcissistic
And
psychopath.
didn't they all get off? Didn't all of them get off?
Yeah, they all
too?
did. Yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
I think
Yeah.
I
It was a
think
kidnapping, literally a kidnapping with intent
Yeah.
to potential attempted murder.
Mm.
And literally all, so there's your answer, Ro, right there. Again, LAPD, which I have a long history with, again, and Courtney having this just skating. She attacked a woman on a couch, beat her with a full bottle of Jack Daniels. I spoke to her.
yeah,
Like, one time.
I
She's
think doing
nothing.
a show dialing in on Courtney. I mean, she's the closest one to him. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think dialing in on her is going to set the stage for opening people's eyes up. I mean, how
And
long's
now
it
she
been now?
pops
It's
out.
been 3
Now she's
decades.
back, right?
Right?
Now she's back
Right?
on Billy Corgan. Oh, what a coincidence. Now she's popping out. Oh, and
Yeah.
Billy's right. Oh, and Billy was one having an affair with her. And when Kurt was mad about that in Rome, oh, there's
Oh,
Billy
hell yeah.
Corgan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here
I
comes
tell you
the
what,
Illuminati.
Yeah.
Here they come.
I think if you guys have got WhatsApp, I'll get Shane to send over my WhatsApp number and we can put a group together and we'll get a couple of shows planned because this
It's
is
too much.
way too much, right? For one show. And I think starting with Courtney and then bringing in the other people or tagging them on with Courtney's show or whatever, I really think we need to delve into Courtney a lot deeper because that's going to set the stage for everything that was going on around Kurt, the person he was dealing with, the kind of people she dealt with, but also the mindset of a woman. If we're going to be tying in a larger conspiracy here, if we're talking Epstein-style crimes or anything like that, the mindset of that woman is important for us to understand. And if you're willing to chase somebody down the road with a broken bottle or beat them over the head with Jack Daniels, that is pretty much top ranking for recruitment for these people.
I
Do you
think Isaiah.
understand?
I think Isaiah Silva's story is takes the cake more than any
Right?
of them. That
Yeah,
one,
I think so
these
too.
were- there were like 4 guys with it. Like there were 4 total men. I heard they were dressed like cops.
They
One of
were.
them, like
Yeah, they
it's
pretended
just
to be
like,
the
it's
cops.
sick. Yeah, it's sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need
So-
to delve into this. Yeah, carry on,
I-
Michelle.
I'll just say this before I know we all have to go, but it is, my life's sort of work now to not just get justice for Kurt, but to let people know who she is and what she's done and how she has continued to destroy his narrative. I don't know if you know anything about Carl Jung, but I'm into like sort of Jungian archetypes, and so there's one called the devourer, and it's someone who attaches themselves to someone, and they continue to feed off them even after death, like what she's done in Montage of Heck. That's all lies. That's her revenge film against the man she murdered. She got $450 million. It's a tale as old as time. Watch any Dateline.
$450 million.
Yeah. And then she tried to sue her daughter, Frances, to get more money. And the judge threw it out because he
Oh,
was
she
so
is still on
disgusted
the
by
gear.
her.
Guaranteed she's still on the gear. 450 million. Mate.
And that, Ron, is why people are afraid of her, because she's always had Kurt's money and she's willing to do shit that nobody else is willing to do.
It's
Like
got
she will
nothing to
chase
do with
a-
money. It's got nothing to do with
Well,
money. It's got to do with whatever she has goddamn got her fingers on. She's got her fingers on levers or buttons somewhere, man, because it takes more than just money. You don't get away with this when you're broke. Okay.
No,
I mean, you could, if this was last week and she's 450 million deep, okay, there's some checks being written to some cops, right?
Well, now
She's writing no checks. This is, we need to delve into this, Michelle. Like, we really do. And I appreciate your time.
I think Frances controls the estate more than Courtney now.
Does, yeah.
Yeah,
she took it over.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, Chris, what she was trying to
Frances.
prevent. Frances got it at 25. So she took Frances to court to try to stop her from getting any money until she was 40. And the judge said, this is deplorable. No. and gave Frances her rightful inheritance. But, you know, and that's why she tried, Ron, to keep Frances on drugs, because then she could manipulate Frances to give her more money from the estate. So if you're willing to dig into this with me, Ron,
Yes.
I am all in, and I will give you everything on Courtney, and let's let people know who this person is.
100%.
Her PR machine is out there every day. You see all this shit, Chris. I know you see it when you're scrolling on Facebook. All we see now is how great Courtney is, what an icon she is, what a feminist she is. No. Every day, I will tell you something new that we can get out to people about her, because people need to know who this person is. She's worse than Bundy on his worst day. And I'll stand by that. I would rather go have dinner with Bundy. I'm not even kidding. He probably won't attack you at dinner, you know? Like, this woman is...
At least you know you're getting into a Bundy, right? You can sort of prepare yourself a little bit. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly, right.
But I think that's what needs to be done. I think Courtney needs to be the next step in this, and really start dialing in, because you guys have done so much research and done all of this. So the least we can do is at least offer the platform to try and push this out and get people talking about it again. Because I mean, these are all from today, these news headlines. Inside new independent report on Kurt Cobain's death. We've got Kurt Cobain write the entire suicide note. These experts say he did not. So this is all about the handwriting. Then we've got Utah investigator says new evidence that shows. This is all today.
Yeah.
This is oh, I've disappeared. I'm gonna say this is today. This is all today. So,
and that article actually merges some of Jason's stuff with Michelle. So it's pretty interesting.
Do you know,
I want you guys to know this is being silenced by the media. We even had a reporter interview Joseph, and at the last minute, the reporter goes, well, my editors say I can't run it. We said, well, why not? We just want you to talk about his book. He just wants to make some money, and let's try to help Joseph out. No, the editors say no. Well, you told us, Mr. Reporter, that you didn't have a boss. So you said you could do any story you wanted. What's up? Row. There you go. Right there when it came up to the top, they're like, no. And all we want them to do is write about the book, not solve a murder. Leave that up to us. That's our job, not you, some reporter. You can't solve a murder. You don't even know how to do it. And they shelved the whole story.
Well, look,
I have a copy of it too.
Yeah. Well, look, I think there's not a part of this where there's not a clear sign of a larger story. Okay. When things start getting to the top, even when things are going through the local police, to be denied the facts that have been put forward by the experts and people that have, you know, got knowledge and a career that backs up why they would have the knowledge in the first place. I think all of this warrants way more investigation, and I would love to have another episode with you guys and really delve into Courtney, because I think that's the best place to start.
Well, Michelle, you're going to be on your own with Courtney, because I cannot do, that's Michelle's world, Courtney. I don't talk about Courtney. I don't think Courtney was involved in the actual unaliving, but Michelle, that's you know, in her thing, because I believe Courtney was not there, but that doesn't mean she wasn't involved. Right. But
I mean, listen, leaving the door open, metaphorically speaking.
Well, yeah.
You know,
I focus on, with Joseph's book, with my other book, with the investigation, my podcast, I focus on the people that were there, and I don't want Joseph to be victim shamed. I want Joseph to be able to say what he saw. And if he's wrong here and a date's off there, a minute there, we'll find out in the end. We may never know the truth fully, but I think Joseph Burns needs, and he wants to engage the public.
Well, let's wonder this. If it wasn't a broken bottle or a bottle of Jack Daniels and there'd been a firearm present, would we have seen a different outcome for Courtney Love? Because we can see that she acts on impulse violently, and she clearly, you know, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. You know what I'm saying? So that's what set alarm bells off for me. If you're willing to grab a bottle and smash someone's head, and
I know Michelle, and I know,
but at the same time, Chris, I can agree with you, because with somebody who takes up impulsive actions like that, if someone came to them with a larger plan, having the realization that the end result is what she wanted, but not necessarily getting her hands dirty with it, I could believe that too. The whole thing stinks, and I can't wait to learn more, because really, you guys are, Michelle especially, you guys have really delved into all of this, and I'm along for the ride. But we need to delve in. We need to really delve into Courtney, because that's going to set the stage for what I mean. Just hearing what you touched on, Michelle, is really rattled my cage.
I think Michelle smoked out Courtney, because now she's kind of coming out of the woodwork and seems a little more sane. She's older, right? So she's kind of coming off a little different than the Michelle knows from way back in the day. That's a different person. She's older, right? But I think Michelle's thing, the viral element, I think smoked Courtney out. And I've seen this on other cases. They start coming out. They want to start talking again. Jessica Hopper's doing a podcast. They're doing an article. The Washington Post come running to her. Oh, Courtney Love wants to talk now. It's like, really interesting. Yeah. So
how about you talk about trying to destroy all the evidence, Courtney, or the fact that you've silenced all of the individuals who can talk about the photographs or the report.
She owns the media, man. I'm telling you right now. She could call up the Washington Post, New York Times. She could do anybody, and they'll just run. They'll just go do whatever she says. But people like me and Michelle got her stuff out. But people like me, I got to beat them over the head for years to get them to let me talk or my clients talk. It's disgusting. It's pathetic.
So I'll just say one last quick thing about Courtney and about Kurt's death, and then I'll head out here. But yes, I'm in, Ron, totally in. So my dad died of COPD a couple of years ago this April, and I know what killed my dad. I know it was COPD. I know he stopped breathing because he was sick. If somebody came to me with a manual, 200 pages, and said, "Hey, Michelle, this is why your dad didn't actually die of COPD. We think it was a homicide," I would be at the police every single day until they told me what happened to my dad. The fact that Courtney does not want this case reassessed because she thinks he took his own life, that's BS. Any family member, no matter what you think your spouse did, if somebody comes to you with scientific proof it was a homicide, you should want to stand up for that person and want to get to the truth. And the fact that she is not doing that tells us, I think, everything we need to know. So let's do it. Hit me up on WhatsApp and
I will.
And we'll do it.
I will. And I just want to say to both of you, thank you so much for being here. Chris, Michelle, thank you so much.
Thank
Chris,
you.
Everyone's links are in the description. Thank you. Like and subscribe. Make sure you guys share. I'm back. I think Tuesday I'm back. I think Sean is doing a bunch of stuff this week. So you're going to get a lot of Ron. And I look forward to doing all that. So Chris, Michelle, thank you to the mods, to the admins, to the Sean Atwood channel. Thank you for having us, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Okay.